In a quiet fishing village in the Philippines, life was simple but never easy. Wooden houses stood on shaky stilts above muddy water, and the salty wind carried the scent of struggle. Among the laughter of children and the cries of seagulls lived a boy named Miguel, a thin young dreamer with eyes that always looked toward the horizon. His mother washed clothes for the neighbors, her hands cracked and worn from soap and hard work, while his father spent endless nights at sea, chasing fish under the moonlight. They had little, but every night, when Miguel sang, the walls of their small home felt rich with warmth and love. Miguel's voice was pure, a sound that seemed too beautiful for a boy who had so little. He didn't have fancy microphones or music lessons. His stage was the sand, his spotlight the setting sun. He would stand near the shore, close his eyes, and sing to the ocean as if it were listening. Sometimes, his neighbors gathered around, quietly watching this barefoot boy whose voice carried both joy and pain. It was as if every note told the story of their own struggles. One evening, the village held a small fiesta. Lanterns hung between coconut trees, and the air smelled of grilled corn and roasted fish. The host called for anyone brave enough to sing, and Miguel stepped forward, holding an old microphone that squeaked when he touched it. The crowd giggled, unsure what to expect from this shy boy in torn shorts. But the moment he began to sing, everything changed. The noise of the crowd faded into silence, and his voice, soft, trembling, but full of heart, floated through the night air. Old men wiped their eyes, mothers held their children closer, and when the final note ended, there was a moment of stunned quiet before the entire crowd broke into applause. For the first time, Miguel saw what his music could do. It couldn't fill their plates or fix their boats, but it could heal their hearts, even for a little while. He walked home that night barefoot, but inside, he carried something new, hope. As the years passed, Miguel grew older, and so did his responsibilities. His father fell ill after a stormy night at sea, and his mother's laundry work was barely enough to buy rice. Miguel was forced to leave school and sell street food to help his family survive. Every morning, he walked miles to the city, pushing a small cart of fried bananas, singing softly under his breath to pass the time. People often stopped and smiled, not just at his food but at the sound of his voice. His songs made traffic a little less heavy, and the world a little less cruel. One afternoon, while singing on a crowded bus stop, a man holding a camera phone stopped to record him. The man smiled and said, "You have something special, kid. Don't ever stop." Miguel didn't think much of it and went back to selling, unaware that the video was about to change everything. Within days, the video spread across social media, reaching thousands of viewers from around the world. People were touched by the sight of a poor Filipino boy singing with so much emotion. Comments flooded in, "This boy has a voice of an angel, he deserves the world, somebody help him." For the first time, Miguel realized that his voice wasn't just heard by his village anymore, it had crossed oceans. His mother cried when she saw the video on a borrowed phone. "The world knows my son," she whispered, hugging him tightly. But fame didn't bring instant fortune. Miguel still sold food, still slept in a small room with a leaking roof. Yet something inside him had changed. He began to believe that maybe dreams weren't just for rich people. Maybe even a boy from the slums could reach the stars if he just kept singing. And every night, as he looked up at the moon reflected on the water, Miguel whispered to himself, "Someday, they'll know my name. Someday, I'll sing on the biggest stage in the world." The email came on a humid morning when Miguel was helping his mother wash clothes by the river. He didn't notice it until later that afternoon, when he borrowed his friend's phone to check messages. The subject line made his heart stop: "Invitation to audition, America's Got Talent." For a long moment, he thought it was a joke. Someone like him, a boy who had never left his village, couldn't possibly be invited to the biggest talent show in the world. But as he read the message over and over, his hands began to shake. It was real. The show had seen his viral video and wanted him to come to Los Angeles for a live audition. Tears filled his eyes. He ran home barefoot, waving the phone in the air, shouting, "Mama, they want me in America." His mother couldn't believe it. The whole village gathered that night to celebrate. Neighbors who barely had enough for themselves donated small amounts of money, coins, a few bills, even rice, to help pay for his travel. His mother stayed up sewing his audition outfit from old fabric, patching holes and pressing it carefully with a charcoal iron. His father, still weak but smiling, placed his calloused hand on Miguel's shoulder and said, "Sing from your heart, my son. That's all you need." The day of the flight was filled with both excitement and fear. It was his first time seeing an airplane, let alone flying in one. When he arrived in America, everything felt too big: bright lights, fast cars, people speaking English he could barely understand. But when he stepped into the AGT theater, all fear melted into wonder. The stage lights shimmered like stars. The audience buzzed with energy. He stood backstage, clutching the microphone tightly, whispering a prayer. When his name was called, he stepped into the spotlight, his heart pounding in his chest. Simon Cowell looked at him with that familiar, unreadable expression. "What's your name?" he asked. "My name is Miguel," the boy said softly, his accent thick but his tone humble. "And where are you from?" "I'm from the Philippines, sir." The audience applauded. "And what are you going to sing for us today?" "A song, for my parents," he said, his voice trembling. The music began, simple piano chords, and Miguel closed his eyes. When he started singing, the hall fell silent. Every word carried the weight of his journey, the nights of hunger, the dreams by the sea, the love of his family. His voice was raw, full of emotion and truth, and even the coldest heart couldn't ignore it. As the song ended, the crowd erupted in cheers. Miguel stood frozen, unsure what to do until Simon smiled faintly and said, "You have something very special, young man." Another judge added, "That was pure, that was real." Miguel began to cry, overwhelmed by emotion, but what happened next was beyond anything he ever dreamed. One of the judges looked at her fellow panelists, then at Miguel, and pressed the golden buzzer. Suddenly, the theater exploded in golden confetti. It rained down like a miracle, shimmering under the bright lights. Miguel dropped to his knees, his small hands covering his face as tears poured down. The audience rose to their feet, cheering his name. The judges rushed to the stage to hug him. Even Simon, known for his tough exterior, wiped a tear from his eye. Backstage, Miguel found his mother waiting with open arms. They held each other tightly as golden specks clung to their clothes. She whispered, "You did it, my son. You made the world hear you." For Miguel, that moment wasn't just about fame or success. It was about proving that no dream was too far, no voice too small. When the cameras stopped rolling and the confetti settled, Miguel sat alone for a moment on the edge of the stage. He looked around the vast theater, still glowing from the lights, and whispered a quiet promise to himself, "I'll never forget where I came from." The boy who once sang to the sea was now singing to the world, and his story had only just begun. The weeks after Miguel's golden buzzer moment were like living in a dream. Suddenly, he was no longer the boy singing for coins on the streets, he was a viral sensation known around the world. Interviews, fan messages, and television spots filled his days, but beneath the lights and cameras, he remained the same humble kid from his fishing village. Still, fame came with pressure. Every performance had to be better than the last. Every note had to be perfect. As the America's Got Talent competition moved into the next rounds, Miguel felt the weight of expectation heavy on his small shoulders. He practiced for hours each day, pushing his voice until it cracked, sometimes falling asleep in the rehearsal room with his microphone still in hand. There were moments when doubt crept in. What if I'm not good enough? What if people forget me? He whispered to himself late at night. Backstage, he watched other contestants, dancers, magicians, and professional singers, each with their own style and confidence. Compared to them, Miguel felt small and unpolished. But then he remembered his father's words, "Sing from your heart." That became his strength. When he walked onto the stage for the semifinal performance, he didn't wear anything fancy, just a simple white shirt and jeans, the same way he sang back home. The music started, and Miguel sang a soulful ballad that spoke about never giving up. His voice trembled at first, but as he reached the chorus, something inside him burst open. Every emotion he had ever buried, fear, hunger, love, gratitude, poured out of him. By the end of the song, the entire audience was standing. One of the judges leaned forward and said, "You remind us why we started this show, to find real people with real stories." But not everyone was kind. Online, a few critics called him too emotional, or said he relied too much on his backstory. Miguel tried to ignore them, but sometimes their words hurt. He would scroll through his phone and see both love and hate side by side. Yet, instead of giving up, he used that pain as fuel. They can doubt me, he thought, but they can't silence me. Each week, his performances became stronger, more heartfelt, more powerful. He began to understand that success wasn't about proving people wrong, it was about staying true to who he was. The night before the grand finale, Miguel knelt in his dressing room, hands clasped together, whispering a prayer. "Lord, I don't know if I'll win," he said softly. "But please, let my song give hope to someone out there who feels forgotten." With tears in his eyes, he stood, took a deep breath, and walked toward the stage one last time. The lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the massive crowd. Miguel stood alone in the center of the stage, holding the microphone close. "This song is for my parents," he said. The piano began, and he sang an original song titled From the Shore to the Stars. It told his story, from the ocean where he first sang as a child to the glittering stage before him now. His voice soared through the theater, delicate yet powerful, trembling with emotion. People in the audience cried openly. Simon Cowell, known for his tough heart, nodded slowly, visibly moved. When the final note faded, the crowd erupted into thunderous applause. When the results were announced, Miguel didn't win the title, but the cheers that followed his name were louder than anyone else's. He smiled through his tears, proud and at peace. He had achieved something far greater than a trophy, he had touched millions of hearts. After the show, record labels reached out, news channels called, and invitations flooded in. But Miguel's first trip after the competition wasn't to Hollywood, it was back home. When he returned to his village, people lined the streets with banners and flowers. His mother cried as she hugged him tightly. With the money he earned, Miguel built a small music school so children who couldn't afford lessons could learn for free. "Dream big," he told them. "If a boy from the shore can sing to the stars, so can you." His journey from poverty to spotlight had come full circle, but Miguel knew his real purpose had just begun, to give others the voice that once saved him.